Death, taxes, and the Saints finding another way to blow a win in the final seconds of the game. We'll talk about it right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Rosvoglu, and as always, the podcast is brought to you by Scott Fickner. Injury lawyers have been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore. Scott Fickner handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. So the Saints came up short today at Atlanta Falcons in maybe the most frustrating game of the Dennis Allen era. Honestly, it might be that way. There's so many things I want to say about it, and obviously we'll get to your thoughts and your comments. So I want to advise you guys, if you have something to say, make sure to put it in the chat. I will get it up in the comment section in about, let's say, 8 minutes or so. So leave your comments. And if you enjoy the content that we put out here at Buku Media, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That greatly helps us out, and we also appreciate it. So we really thank you guys for all the support. So let's get into this and let's talk about it, because man, I'm so frustrated. And I do have the sides, the topics on the side, and we will go through them. Although I would say for this episode, there's going to be a magnitude of things. So many hands are involved in a loss like this, where the Saints should win easily. The Saints should have won easily. I mean, they didn't give up an offensive touchdown. They played extremely, offensively, did extremely well in terms of execution early in the first half. Defense wasn't necessarily great, but they weren't giving up a ton of big plays in the first half. And yet you had the fumble from Shaheed on the muffed punt, the pick six from Derek Carr on the pass that got deflected. And then in the second half, you put yourself in a position to win this game. And I didn't have an ounce of confidence in this team to get that final stop. No timeout for the Falcons. Granted, they start from their own 30 because of the new kickoff rules. And I felt like the Falcons would go down there and score, at least a field goal to give themselves the win. And shocker, that's exactly what they did in that spot. So, I mean, it's so frustrating. And let's just go through them. So let's start with Carr. Let's start with Kubiak. Let's go from there. I don't know if this loss is one, like I said, where you just blame them. There are so many factors as to why the Saints lost this game. So many factors. But for all the hype that Klint Kubiak got in the first 2 weeks, and so much of it was deserved, can we start talking about the suspect play calling from him? So you're running to the right side where you cannot run the football, and you keep doing it. That part makes no sense to me. Very Pete Carmichael-esque. And then when it comes down to the quarterback play, I am not one of those people that's going to blame Derek Carr for everything, right? Like, I'm not going to wake up, stub my toe in the morning and be like, oh, Derek Carr, that's his fucking fault. But at some point, we have to take the training wheels off. 36 pass attempts, 239 yards, 28 completions for 239 passing yards is not enough. And again, I'm not a yards guy, right? Sometimes yards can feel empty, and we all know Derek Carr's had those. But it feels like certain times the training wheels are on. And yeah, the Saints took it off at the end, and they ended up scoring, and they realized when you throw to Chris Olave, good things happen, because guess what? He is your number one receiver for a fucking reason. It's frustrating. So I've said, Kubiak's got to show me. And yeah, they did have that drive at the end, which was great, but so many other possessions were squandered. And if we're being honest, the Saints in the second half were horrible on offense until that final drive. So yeah, that part's great, fine. How about Dennis Allen? Dennis Allen's defense. Do they ever get the stop when it matters? Serious question. Do they ever get the stop when it matters? I tweeted this, and I fully believe this. I think the last time the Saints got a stop that, actually mattered was the pick six with PJ Williams near Halloween in 2021. That was 3 fucking years ago. They never get the stop when it matters. And they went from what could have been 4-0 to now 2-2. And I'm not even frustrated that they are 2-2 at this point. I'm frustrated that my dumbass watched those two games and was like, it seems a little different, because guess what? They've gone right back to same old Dennis Allen football, where good teams find ways to close games. The Saints find ways to lose games. Think about it, guys. They did not give up an offensive touchdown. How does a team score 26 points in a football game without scoring a touchdown on offense? The math ain't mathing. And yet that's what happened. And as for, the final kick from the Falcons, 58 yards, could have been from 78 yards. That fucking kick would have been good. And ever since the NFC Championship game in 2019, I always assume it's going to go. So once the Falcons got there, I was ready to get, started for this podcast with the Saints losing. So that didn't surprise me. So Kubiak suspect. Was Derek Carr god-awful today? No, he wasn't god-awful, but he wasn't good enough. And yes, the final drive was good. And I got to give Carr credit on that. I thought he was really good on the final drive. But either Kubiak's got to get the training wheels off or Carr's going to start taking chances. Either one, it just seems like the same old pedestrian offense at times. That part bothers me. Really bothers me. Maybe the only guy that I'm going to let off the hook, maybe two, Olave and Alvin. I don't want to hear a bad thing about either one of those guys. Don't want to hear a bad thing at all. So I vented about them. Let's talk about what I'm about to get to, which is the main topic. Is it panic time for the Saints? The answer is fucking yes. And I said last week, depending on how the Saints would lose this game, I wouldn't panic because of the injuries. But the injuries didn't matter today. No McCoy, no Ruiz, no DeMario. You lose Tyrann Mathieu in the game. Alante Taylor got knocked out for a little bit. Chris Olave is playing on one hamstring. And yet the injuries didn't matter. So how, Chris, do you change your stance and go from, oh, you weren't going to panic to now you're going to panic? The reason I'm going to say I'm going to panic is the way the Saints lost. The Saints lost from sloppy football, from the typical things we're accustomed to seeing with Dennis Allen coach teams. And that is why at the end of the day, when people want to try and defend him, I get frustrated. We see this loss way too many times. So yeah, I am going to panic that a team that started off 2-0 and very well could have been 4-0 is now in a situation where you're 2-2 and your next game is against the defending champions on Monday Night Football. And your game after that is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just steamrolled an Eagles team that you lost to because you couldn't make that final stop late in the game, just like you couldn't make the final stop late today. So yeah, I do think to some degree, it is panic time in New Orleans. And I still feel like to certain extents, this team is at least aesthetically pleasing, sure, more than last year's team. But I do feel like they are better in certain categories. But they don't make the big plays when it matters. When it matters, they don't make it. And how about the defensive line? I thought that was going to be a thing for the Saints that was going to be really good. Like, I was very, very excited to see what the Saints defensive line was going to look like. That, to me, it was one of my main takeaways going into this season. I thought Chase Young would be great. Carl Granderson's been good, so I'm not going to knock Granderson. But Chase Young is always a second late to making the big play. That can't keep happening. Cam Jordan should already be a family man at this point. The guy can't play anymore. And Peyton Turner made a great play today. He almost had a sack and then fumble recovery, but the Saints couldn't jump on it. And honestly, had they done that, maybe they win this game. That's 3 points that gets added on the board. So much frustration. And I'll turn it over to you guys. But before I do that, I just want to say, you're going to be like, what's the uncomfortable Taysom Hill situation? And I think it's more conversation than anything. Taysom Hill was great today, and he got hurt again. And I'm saying this as a fan of Taysom Hill and someone who realizes that there's bigger things in football. Taysom Hill was awesome for the New Orleans Saints, and I think he is one of their best playmakers, and I think the Saints are an infinitely better team with him on the field than off the field. But we need to start having a conversation about whether or not he can handle the role that he has on this Saints team with Kubiak. He is awesome till he gets hurt, and the beating he's taking is not your typical injuries. Bruised lung in week 2. Now he's got the abdomen injury. Like, he's an older player. Before he even went pro, he dealt with injuries at the collegiate level pretty often. You got to save a player from themselves at some point. And yeah, him going down hurt. The Saints were not the same team without Taysom Hill. So it stinks for me to even say that, like, oh, we should have a conversation about whether or not he should still be used in that role. But if you're going to use him in that role, understand you're not going to have him every week because it's too physically demanding for him at this stage in his career. And on the flip side, do you want to keep putting that guy in this situation where every other week he's getting hurt and it's a serious injury in that kind of upper body region? So I wish Taysom Hill the best. I hope he recovers. He's a freaking beast. He's a Falcon killer. But my mind went to that while I was watching the game. I'm like, I just don't think it's sustainable for Taysom Hill. He unfortunately is getting hurt a little bit too often at this point. So I'm going to switch it over to you guys and see what you guys have to say. But before I do that, I want to get a quick word from one of our sponsors, Scott Fickner.
And Jonathan Williams brings it all the way back from the 20-yard line.
What a terrific way to end the first half.
And tonight's game is brought to you by Scott Fickner Injury Attorneys. They always fight for the win.
You mean attorney? It's one lawyer. Scott Fickner?
No, there's two.
Brad Scott and David Fickner.
Well, it's confusing.
That it is. They could have picked a better name.
Scott Fickner, Injury Attorneys, we fight for the win.
Once again, thank you to Scott McNair for being part of the program. We greatly appreciate it. Now we're going to bring it over to our fan Q&A presented by Sunshine, your hometown John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer. Got a quick super chat here from Half-Life. We'll go there, and then we'll get to all your comments. Half-Life with super chat. First off, thank you for the support. Says, I don't even know what to say. The only thing I look forward to when we lose is you ripping up the mistakes made. And wow, there were some. First off, thank you for the support. We do greatly appreciate it. It really does mean a lot. But yeah, it's incredibly frustrating that they're even in this situation. And they had one final drive you're not going to erase all the mistakes, right? The Saints made so many mistakes in this game. Had they made that stop, it doesn't erase all the damage. But you know what? We kind of forget about it because you get the win. And then Paulson Adebo picks up that huge PI, which, by the way, Paulson Adebo was the worst player on the field today. Is it harsh of me to say that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm overreacting. But Paulson Adebo felt like the worst player on the field today. And I just don't know what else the Saints have to figure out with him because he's due for an extension. I don't want to say one game dictates everything, but Paulson Adebo, at least a couple times every season, has one game where he forgets how to play football. And today was one of those games against Darnell Mooney where, Jesus, you just kept throwing at him. And it was a PI. So really, really annoying. I don't know. They're in a bind. I don't even know if you extend him. It was one of those frustrating games where that was going through my mind. Also have a super chat here from Ed. Thank you for the support, Ed. He says, Penning, Jordan, Williams need to go. Yeah, so Penning was horrific today. Absolutely horrific. Not surprised. He is one of those players who I think we're going to have to accept is streaky as all hell. He's great 1 week, and then he's bad for 2 weeks, and then he's okay for 2 weeks, and then he's shit for 3 weeks. So it seems to be the case. Cam Jordan, look, man, Cam Jordan at this point, and I mean this with all the respect in the world, because I think this guy has had a phenomenal NFL career. He is the spokesperson of the Saints at this point. He does nothing on the football field that actually impacts the Saints in a manner that helps them win games. There's nothing he can do at this stage in his career that will help them win. Nothing. So I appreciate the interviews. He's great. He's a fantastic guy, but that's it. As for Jamal Williams, I don't care. It might sound harsh, and maybe I'm like crazy for even thinking this. I feel like on my best day, I could beat this motherfucker in a foot race. He is so slow. He is so fucking slow. Every time he gets the ball, it doesn't matter if it's a pass, doesn't matter if it's a run, doesn't matter if it's the final kickoff of the game. This guy is running like he's got fucking rocks in his shoes, and it is insane that he continues to get the ball for no reason. That's why I keep saying I can't wait for Kendre Miller to come back. I don't want to see Jamal Williams on the football field anymore. I don't. Whatever the slowest Pokemon is, since he's a Pokemon fan, that's who he is. He has zero burst, negative burst. Nothing to him is good. Not a single thing about Jamal Williams' game is good. Honestly. And again, this is not Jamal. Jamal's not the reason they lost today. But again, there's guys that play for the Saints that don't actually do anything for the Saints, but they get to go on the field. Like, why? Why is it allowed? So frustrating. All right, let's go into them. Noah says, we always find a way to lose. I agree, Noah. Sergio says Adebo is a bum. Can't disagree with that. I mean, he was terrible today. And he's usually a good football player. Today, he was terrible. Jacob says another Dennis Allen masterclass. Yeah, Dennis Allen masterclass is just his team looking master ass. That's literally what a masterclass for Dennis Allen is, because the man's got a PhD in choking away games. So shout out to him on that. We got another super chat here. Says, first off, thank you for the support. It says, if by week 8 we're 3-4, do we fire Dennis? And if we do we move up to Klint? Really good question here. Is it by scout technically? I don't know. Maybe I pronounced it wrong. I apologize. If by week 8 they're 3-4, do they fire Dennis? No. I think Dennis Allen's probably going to be the coach for the whole season. I think the Saints would have to have some catastrophic collapse, I don't know, they're 2-7, and they're like, okay, now we got to fire the guy. Which better not happen for my sanity, for your sanity. If that happens, we're all fucked. So yeah, let's not wish for that. But 3-4, no, I don't think they would fire him. However, 3-4 would be interesting, because if they're 3-4, so they have Chiefs, Bucks, Broncos. None of those games are gimmies, by the way. I mean, Broncos have now won 2 in a row. So, shows what a coach is, right? And I hate talking about Sean Payton anymore. He's not on the Saints, so I shouldn't care. But their roster is not as good as the Saints roster, and they're 2-2 now. They've won back-to-back games. Saints have now lost back-to-back games. So that part's pretty frustrating. But yeah, I don't think they'll fire him by week 8 if they're 3-4. I don't. Now, if they did fire him, who would you move up? I'd actually move up Darren Rizzi to make him the head coach. I just don't think, because everyone was so scared about losing Klint Kubiak after 2 weeks of football, I don't think Klint Kubiak is a good enough leader to be a head coach at this stage in his career, where Rizzi has actually had head coaching interviews, and I think the Saints value him a little bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, special teams with the Rashid Shaheed fumble today was not good, but, I think Rizzi would be the guy that you call up. When you give your opponent 14 free points in the NFL, you usually don't win. Saints beat themselves today. Too much of a trend for DA coach teams. I agree. Margaret says, brutal game. Red Joseph says, I had that sinking Saints feeling the entire second half. So did I, man. You better not trade Lattimore. I'm not even worried about that right now. I agree with you, right? Like, I don't want the Saints to trade Lattimore. But on the other hand, if this continues and the Saints keep losing, I don't even care if they trade Lattimore or not. I love Lattimore. Lattimore's been a great Saint for his entire career. But I'm not even worried about that right now. I would say my focus is they got to figure out by the end of the season, they have to have a good idea. Like, are we keeping Adebo or not? Or are we getting rid of him? I would lean towards, you probably just don't even sign him an extension at this point, and you lean on guys like Alante and Kool-Aid, and you can go add another corner if you want. But that's what I'm focused about more than Lattimore, if I'm being quite honest. Pottyman27 says, adjusted win-loss now, I'd say max 8 wins. Bucks take division, and we suffer through DA and Carr another season. Also, what is the justification for Juwan keeping a roster spot, not moving the needle at all? Yeah, their tight end room is horrific. Absolutely fucking horrific. There's no burst from that position group. They get nothing of significance from them. I just feel like there's so many guys stealing money from this team, and he would be one of them too. So, yeah, Juwan's not good enough. As for adjusted win-loss, I still think they're in that 8-9 win range. You look at their schedule. The schedule's not that daunting. Yeah, the next 2 games are tough, but their schedule's not that bad. And it's just a matter of whether or not they could string together consecutive wins and be consistent, which we know is not the norm for Dennis Allen. But that's what it would come down to. But I would be, for now, I'd be shocked if it's less than 8. If it's less than 8, then I think fans will get what they want, which is DA fired. But I think you're looking at 8 or 9 right now. Margaret says, Falcons didn't need to show up. We beat ourselves. Adebo was terrible today. Adebo was terrible, and I agree. Falcons didn't need to show up, and their offense didn't show up. They scored 0 points as an offense. If we take all that field goals, for fine. They didn't score a touchdown, and they still won. So, to your point, you are correct. Alex says, good teams find a way to close out games. Can't ask for more from our 2-minute offense the last 2 weeks. I guess the offense can't leave any time on the clock. Yeah, it's a difficult dilemma, right? Because the offense is screwing them over at times. But that's back-to-back weeks when the offense needed that gotta-have-it drive to put yourself up. They did it both times against the Eagles, against the Falcons, and you're asking your defense to make a stop. And what I love, and by love, I mean, like, I don't actually love it, I'm being a sarcastic asshole, is the Saints love to say, put the game on us. The defense, they're like, oh, put the game on us. We want to be that defense that we shut it down. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no one's buying that shit. Because every time the Saints have a chance on defense to make that game-winning stop, they come up short every single time. I'm so used to it at this point. Not even, I was going to say I'm not even bothered by it, but you guys can tell I'm bothered by it. But it's the same old story. Logan says defense wants to show they can win games, but they have lost 2 in a row when it matters. Couldn't agree more, man. Margaret says we had most of the third string out there on defense. Next week is going to be another loss with all the injuries. That is another problem into all this, right? The Saints are now an injury-riddled team that isn't well coached. That's a horrible formula. You got your bad health teams that are well coached and they find ways to win. You also have your teams that are stacked. Not great coaching, but they are stacked. The Saints are like, they're not stacked, so now they're hurt. And then on top of it, they're not well coached. It's a really bad recipe. Matthew says, I hate life. I need to complain. Complain right away. I'm here for you guys. This is a safe space. It's a safe space. Don't let my annoying voice confuse you. It's a safe space. Car crashed. The car has crashed. Fair enough. Sergio says Kubiak is sus. He is very sus. Chung says Rattler 2024. I mean, that there's going to be, the more this continues, the more people will talk about it. Again, Derek Carr is not the right. If there's one main reason, it's not Derek Carr. It's not the main reason they're losing. There's so many factors. But yeah, when you keep losing, people are going to talk about it. There's no doubt about it. Zachary with the super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Zachary says, is it crazy to just consider next weekend a loss? I'm going to say yes, only for one reason. The Chiefs play up and down to their competition, which it happens. A lot of good teams play up and down to their competition. They seem to do it a little bit more than most. But yeah, I would say it is a little crazy to consider it a loss just because it is the NFL and it's week to week. That said, I'm expecting the Saints to lose that game. So we'll put that there, El Mendoza says, that's it. I've had enough. Trade for Joe Flacco. I mean, we laugh, but Joe Flacco's got a Super Bowl and he is a dog. So Dustin says, Adebo sucks. All of his interceptions are off wide receivers slipping, and he is prone to 4 penalties a game. That is a good point, actually. Cowboys interception, receiver slip. Today's interception, I think Ray McLeod slipped. And yeah, cool. Interceptions are great. You know what's not great? 4 pass interference calls, 3 pass interference calls, costly ones at the end of the game that result in the team kicking a game-winning field goal. So, yeah, it's great till it's not. The interceptions are cool, but I'd rather have no interception and none of the mistakes than the interception and the 3 big mistakes that come with it. Alex says, almost impressive to lose in today's NFL without giving up an offensive touchdown. It is very impressive. It's very impressive, Matthew says, not Derek Carr's fault at all today. Again, on the defense for being unable to close out and on the coaching staff. I don't think Derek was great today. I think, missed some throws. Pressure scared him again. Now, do I think Derek was awful? No, I don't think so. I thought he had a very okay performance. And when I'm going to rank why the Saints lost, by no means is he going to be at the top of the list at all. So I would say, again, that's just who Derek Carr is, right? He's kind of that middle tier quarterback, and that's how he looked like today. Middle tier quarterback, some good throws, some bad throws, and But it comes down to the Saints making stupid mistakes in critical situations, in my opinion. Markel with a super chat. Thank you so much for the support. Says, did Klint Kubiak use up all of his good play calls the first 2 weeks? And why do they not target Olave like a true number 1 receiver? First question, I can't answer that because I really don't know. It almost feels that way. And I'm going to be honest. I think that Klint Kubiak has good plays. And I think the Saints did a good job of moving the football in the first half against the Falcons. And then they just made that sloppy mistake with the pick 6, and it kind of felt like you derailed all that positive momentum. On the flip side, okay, I would say for him, there are certain tendencies that I don't like. I think he's a little too stubborn with the run game. A little too stubborn. Stop running to the right side. It's not working. I know you're trying to be balanced, but they're losing yards every time they ran Alvin to the right side behind Penning, behind Landon Young. It wasn't working on that side. As for Olave, it's a fantastic question that you ask. I can't answer the question, though, because I don't know why they keep doing this. I think Olave is a fantastic receiver. I think he's one of the better receivers in the NFL. I think he's getting better and better each week. And yet, the Saints are doing this streaky usage of him. Beginning of the game, he gets 3 catches on the first drive. If you want to go out there and bet for Olave to have his over on first quarter receiving yards, you'll probably hit it every time because they get him usage early. And then there's nothing. And then late in the game, they use him again. The script between the Eagles and the Falcons today offensively, in terms of Olave's usage, looks a lot similar. They look very similar, in my opinion. It was almost exactly the same. Olave early, didn't use him till the fourth quarter. And he's better than that. He's absolutely better than that. I mean, finished today with 8 catches for 87 yards, and yet I feel like they could have used him a lot more than they actually did. So just pretty frustrating overall, in my opinion. Let's see what we got. Fred says 2 weeks in a row, you go for it on 4th down instead of taking points and you lose. At some point, Dennis Allen's shitty record can't be blamed on personnel. I agree on that last part wholeheartedly. 4th down, I'll live with it if there's consistency. I'll live with it. Dennis Allen went for it last week. He went for it this week. I'm going to respect the consistency. As for the losing part, yeah, absolutely. At some point, you run out of people to throw under the bus till you realize you are the problem. Because the first year, your quarterback wasn't good enough. And the second year, your offensive coordinator wasn't good enough. And the third year, what's the excuse? And again, mind you, he's not a third-year head coach. He coached for 2 seasons fully with the Raiders and then got booted after an 0-4 start his 3rd season. So he's been around the block. At some point, DA is who he is. He's a really good coach when it comes to developing DBs. I think he's one of the best at developing DBs. But what did this loss look like? It's something we've seen the last 3 seasons. There's nothing different from today's loss to a Bengals loss from 2 years ago in the Dome when Andy Dalton was the starter, to a couple of losses they had last year. It just always seems the same for Dennis Allen. El Mendoza with the super chat. Thank you for the support, man. Says, it's the 4th quarter. You need 1 stop and you don't send a single blitz. I know Kubiak gets flack, but Dennis Allen is in back-to-back weeks blew it. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Last week, he's got them playing man across the board. They have Dallas Goedert on the crosser. The crosser ends up getting the Saints DBs mixed up. He goes for 61 yards on 3rd and 16. That one was inexcusable. Today's, you knew your pass rush wasn't getting on Kirk Cousins. That's a problem. Now, don't get me wrong. If DeMario Davis is playing, it might be a different story because I think DeMario is so good at blitzing. This could have been the perfect game for him to have a sack or two. But he's not in. And for DA to kind of just sit there and again with the press man and hoping it's going to work out. Adebo, who's gotten beat all game, got beat twice by Mooney. One of them was PI, and the other one, Kirk just didn't throw a good enough ball. At some point, it's on Dennis Allen too. And I think, as Saints fans, I'm not blaming you guys, so I hope no one takes it this way. I'm talking more so what I've seen on Twitter with everyone. Everyone is so quick to figure out, well, who's to blame for this and who's to blame for that. And at some point, we just got to put it all on the coach because he's the one who's in charge. You get the glory when you're winning, just like I gave Dennis Allen credit when they won the first 2 games. And now I'm going to give him shit when they lose 2 games in a row where they lost in a manner where, guess what? The coach could not make the right call at the end of the game that made the difference. They just couldn't do it. His defense came up short yet again. So pretty damn frustrating, man. Pretty damn frustrating. Zay says, absolutely pathetic performance. I agree. Defense is incapable of closing out games, and he makes the stupidest decisions. If we're talking about DA, I agree. Trey Day says, defense gives and defense takes. Bad Juju says, no longer confident in this team. Yeah, my confidence is shot to all hell. Shot to all hell when it comes to this team. St. Mike says, why not touch back and let Carr try to redeem himself with a bomb to Olave and or Shaheed? Fair question. I don't know. The Kubiak runs this passing game like it's a fucking preschool. I'm sorry. Running game is great. The shot plays the first 2 weeks of the season were fun. At some point, either let it rip or be like, hey, I don't know if I like my quarterback to run this system and let it rip. Which one is it? It's got to be one of the two. Pretty frustrating. N8 says offense is sloppy without Taysom. We have no business going for it on 4th and goal. Again, when there's easy 3 points, that could have changed the result of this game. Look, for me, I don't mind them going for it in that spot because the thing was always, and the idea was, if you don't get it, the Falcons are backed up. You still needed 7, not 3 in that spot. So I understand it. And who's to say if they kick the field goal? You don't know for certain that the Saints are going to get the ball back immediately. Falcons might have a better drive. Them being backed up might have led to, them having that quick 3 and out. But it's just a bad look for them because they could have used those 3 points. I get it. But I actually didn't mind the call. I actually thought it was the right call. Matthew says, Saints always ruin my Sunday, man. Try not to let them ruin your Sunday. We should get a grace period of an hour or 2 where we get to complain, and then we got to cut out the complaints, Brandon says, pass rush and Adebo are the only ones to blame. Definitely towards the top of the list. Tobias says, Shaheed muff punt was devastating. From that moment, you could tell this game would go, and this defense will never be great without a good pass rush. You know what, Tobias? Honestly, it's weird, though. So when that muff punt happened, I was like, oh, here we go again. It's one of those freaking games for the Saints. And then they go up 14-7. So you're like, okay, not bad. And then the pick 6 happened. So it's honestly, they gave you every reason to be like, oh, that's not how this game's going to go. This Saints team's a little different. And then they make another stupid mistake. So it's just frustrating. John says, I'm so goddamn sick of Dennis Allen. 2-4 incoming. He's a fucking loser. I mean, how can I disagree? How can I disagree with that? You are what your record says you are. And your record, specifically in New Orleans, shows that Dennis Allen is a mediocre coach at best. At best. I just got distracted by a ridiculous pick. Is it going to be a pick 6 from Fred Warner? It looks like it is. Absolute beast, that guy. Yeah, so DA, he is a loser. You are what your record says you are. Pablo says, how the fuck did the Bucs apply the lessons of our game against the Eagles, and yet this is the result of a week of preparation for the Saints? Coaching, man. Coaching matters. Coaching matters. And you're seeing it on full display. Jay Hoodie says defense has to get a stop when they need to. Yeah, but they can't. And it's become a theme for them. Yahtzee says, I'm just so over this team until they sack up and just hit the reset button. Same crap every year with DA. Team is like its coach. A loser. Yeah. What else can I say to you guys? It seems like you guys know it all too well, you know? John says, bench Adebo. No, I'm not overreacting. This is not the first, second, or third time he's had a PI in a clutch moment. He's a backup. Let's focus on the future and Kool-Aid. I don't know about him being a backup. I think that might be a little too harsh. But he has had these games. He's had these games, man. And for Adebo, he's the type of guy who's looking for a really big contract. And someone's going to pay him. I just hope it's not the Saints at this point. Because those errors that he makes, they're too critical, man. They're way too critical. Kubiak says, Matthew says, Kubiak's really been disappointing these past 2 weeks. I agree. Lance says, key players go down and Kubiak cannot adjust. Multiple examples now. Frustrating as hell. Yep. Alex says, I'm trying to find any positives. I guess one would be the fact that we're in these positions at all is definitely an improvement from last year. Grasping for straws at this point. I don't know if it's like grasping for straws. I do believe that the Saints still technically look better than last year's team. But the results are the same in terms of just win-loss. And that's what matters in this league, right? Because, like, everyone, when the Saints were winning the first 2 games, are like, oh, now you like Derek Carr. Yeah, because they're winning. Like, that's what it comes down to. When you win in this league, you forgive shit. Like, the Giants won a game with Daniel Jones 2 weeks ago, and all the Giants fans for 1 week let their foot off the gas when it came to slandering Daniel Jones. And then he wet the bed as he always does on primetime, and Giants fans were out there, asking for a hitman to go take down Daniel Jones. Like, winning and losing in this league is everything. And yeah, the Saints look different, but the result is the same. It's like that James Franco joke with the same but different, but still the same. That's the Saints. Like, that's who they are right now with the way they play. Fred says, if your offense is going to depend on an ex-quarterback who's a Swiss Army knife, we might want to make sure he's bulletproof. He's yet to show he can stay healthy the entire season. He plays too physical. It's the truth. Unfortunate, but it's the truth. Destin says, mad at myself for falling into the hype after the first 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm mad at myself too. Edit King says, if we have a losing record heading into the bye, DA should be fired. I think DA should be fired regardless. Don't think he will be at the end of the year. And that's what I mean by the end of the year. Like, I'll give him the rest of the season to somehow, against all odds, in year 6 of him being a coach, prove us wrong. Outside of that, I could care less. I really do not want to hear anything about this man if he can't turn it around. If it's a continuous mediocre product, I don't know how you keep running it back. Alex says, unfortunately, Kubiak and the offense couldn't keep up the pace from the first few weeks, meaning that even average plays look like a regression. Fact is, the offense held up their end today. They did and they didn't. They did and they didn't. Some plays for the offense look good. Some look terrible. And I just think there's inconsistency with Kubiak. And I'm going to keep saying this, I want him to stop running to the right side of the line. I know you can't just run to one side, but stop running to the right side so consistently. You're not getting anything from there. Ed says Cam Jordan needs to retire now. Chase Young, please don't resign him. Yeah, I'm with you on both. I mean, Cam is washed up at this point. Chase Young, however, disappointment? I guess that's the best way to put it. I mean, what other way can I put it for the way he's played, Saints 41 says, if we were a true contender, we'd be 4-0 right now. Yeah, I think that's fair. At the minimum, 3-1. 2-2. I've seen what I need to see. I've seen what I need to see. This is not a good enough team. This is not good enough to do some damage in the playoffs, make it worth our while, and they'll stay in every game in the regular season, but it's frustrating. And you know what's even more frustrating, man? You have guys like Alvin who come out today and he plays with broken ribs, and he looks so good the whole fucking game. And that guy's got to go back to the locker room after putting his body on the line in a contract year for what? Another loss? Frustrating as all hell, man. Frustrating as all hell. Going to keep it rolling. Brandon says, I'd let Adebo walk and put Kool-Aid there. I agree. Rolly says, hate penning with a passion. The pass rush is finished. Yeah, if Carl Granderson just doesn't go off, the pass rush is non-existent. Weedat24 says they don't even know how to use Williams. They need to let him go elsewhere, to be honest. I mean, I think he's washed at this point, but yeah, I do agree they don't know how to use him, but I don't know how to use him at this point. He can't move. Why is every Dennis Allen team the same? I mean, well, Dennis Allen's coaching it, Justin says Jamal Williams is nothing but a vibes guy at this point, brings nothing else to the table. Yeah, I agree. Havc 735 says Kendrick Miller back next week at least. Yeah, they're going to need him, man. They're going to need Kendrick Miller out there. They're going to need big plays from him. You got to take some of the workload off of Alvin. And I think Kendrick can do that. And also, you got to get your answer, right? You got to figure out, is Kendrick good enough to be a starting running back in this league? Because if he is, you still got him for 2 more years on a cheap deal. But he can't stay healthy, so we'll see. Danny says, who do we blame this loss on? I mean, there's so many people you could blame the loss on. So many. I thought Kubiak was suspect. DA is DA. I mean, that's enough. Adebo was terrible. Pass rush didn't show up. O-line, in terms of run game, towards the right side wasn't good. I thought Penning was horrific. Rashid Shaheed's fumble cost him. Derek Carr had a pick 6. Like, there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar at the moment. And it's tough to pinpoint one, but I think if you're going to pick one, you kind of have to pick, you got to pick the head coach, right? It's his football team. Tony Davis says, second week in a row, the defense let us down at the most crucial point of the game. Not totally hanging it on the D, but damn. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's totally fair. Like, defense played well for most of the game, but great defenses, they close it. They slam the door shut when they have the opportunity. Saints don't do that. Talia says, what do you think of Derek? He played good. I thought Derek was okay. Didn't think he was terrible. Thought he was okay. Danny says, nah, we don't need to fire DA and the offense needs to wake up. I mean, yeah, it's too, look, I am a believer that DA is who DA is. I don't think he's magically going to become better as a head coach. Now, I have said I would rather be proven wrong and look like an idiot and the Saints win. My preference is that the Saints win games and I look wrong. However, I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, for DA, you're not firing him right now. The Saints aren't firing him midseason. So you got to just hope that they this is a rough patch and they figure it out. I don't know if that's going to be the case. Talia says he led us on a game-winning drive, but the PI killed us for Carr. Yeah, look, Carr's had some moments, like he had the drive against the Eagles, and I get that. There's inconsistency. I think part of it is combination of play caller and quarterback. I don't think they're in symmetry right now as much as they should be, and it's not getting talked about enough, in my opinion. Ed says Chiefs, Bucks, Broncos, Chargers. I don't see wins, which is why losses like the Eagles and today matter. Yeah, I mean, of course they matter. Of course they matter. They give your margin for error expands. Like I said, when the Saints went 2-0, right? If your goal was to go 10-7, now after going 2-0, you just got to go 8-7 to finish the year. That seems like 500 football for the most part. You can do that. Well, now let's say your goal was to go 10-7. Okay, great. You got to go 8-5 to end the year. That's a little bit different. So, man, it changes on a dime, this league. It always does, you know? Logan says we won the first 2 games because of Kubiak and lost the last 2 games because DA. We end up losing out on Kubiak as our new head coach because we'll get to 9-10 again, 9 or 10 again, and miss the playoffs. Well, they can't go 9-10, 7-10 they could go, or 9-8. Guys, we're through 4 games. If through these 4 games you guys think Kubiak's ready to be a head coach, I think you're watching the wrong football team. I'm sorry. I think Kubiak looks good at times, but in no way is he ready to be a head coach yet. At least hasn't shown it, in my opinion. Let's see what else we got here. Rebel says, we really need a wide receiver 2 or a tight end, along with the obvious O-line depth. We should call the Ravens, see what they want for Andrews, since likely has emerged as a real option. I don't think trading for an expensive injured tight end is the answer, in my opinion. I do agree that they need weapons, but I'm not going after Mark Andrews at this point. Like, that's not the move, in my opinion. No cap, no filter Saints says, if DA's fired this season, I would be ecstatic. My sanity, my sanity would be at peace. Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people. Matthew says, is it a good thing that we are so extremely close to 4-0, or is it just luck? No, it's frustration. They could very well be 4-0, and they're not 4-0, and a lot of it is coaching. So I don't view it as, a good thing or luck. I think it's frustrating. They should be at the minimum 3-1, and if not, they should be 4-0, and they're not. And that is 100% on the Saints in the big moments coming up short. And the good teams in those big moments always come up on the right side. Like, you watch the Chiefs, right? And everyone complains about the Chiefs. Oh, how do they keep winning games like this? This is ridiculous. It keeps happening. How do they do it? Well, I think for them, it's because they're a good team. They're well coached. And yeah, it helps you have Patrick Mahomes. I get that. But good teams find ways to win those close games. The Saints keep losing those close games. They've won 2 blowouts, and the 2 tests where not everything goes perfect, and you're not up 17-0 and throwing bombs to Shaheed and running all over the Cowboys. You've lost both those tests so far. And it's even more insulting when the team that you lost to last week goes out and plays Tampa and gets their ass kicked from start to finish. How does that make your team look? Not very good, in my opinion. So it's tough. And as Brenton said, we are not a serious organization. Kind of what it feels like right now, guys. Kind of what it feels like. Yahtzee says Shador is going to be broken in two in the NFL, taking the hits he does. Is there a Shador Sanders conversation going on that I missed in chat? Oh, Kyle said Shador 2025. Yeah, I mean, Shador is taking a beating, so I guess he would fit right in with this Saints O-line. Ed says Olave should be getting 15 targets a game. These toss plays to the right need to go. Shit like the 2nd and 10 runs from last year. Yep. Also, what the fuck was that 3rd and goal run from Kubiak at the 5? Because everyone's mad that DA and then went for it on 4th down. Understandably so, even though I think they made the right call going for it on 4th down. What the hell was that run? You gave away a down. Nicole says, I would rather see Bub and Mason out there instead of Shaheed at this point. Give the rookies a shot. If we're talking special teams, yeah, I agree. Also, I think Shaheed is too valuable for this offense as a receiver to be using on special teams. That's just how I feel about it. I've never been a big proponent of putting your good players on return. Like, if they're important for receiving, makes no sense. I remember the Giants years back, and I'm dating myself now because of who I'm about to talk about, so we're going way back now, to Odell being like in his first 2 years. They put him on special teams. I'm like, that dude is your offense. Why the hell is he on special teams? Now, Shaheed is not prime Odell. There's no question about that. But I think I'm good with the Saints kind of moving on from him returning all the time. Like, let's see what these younger guys can do. I think he's also too important for your offense as a receiver, you know? Danny says Taysom Hill leaving the game really changed it, period. Totally agree. Bad Juju says, read a stat that said the last team that gave up this amount of points without a touchdown was the Saints. Shaking my head. Yeah, man. I mean, you want to call it destiny? I don't know. I don't know what we want to call it, but it's not a great look. Brenton says, so all this depends on Taysom's health. He's 34, shaking my head. And that part of it bothers me too, man. Like, because Taysom Hill is such an important, factor in this offense. But, like, he's old. He gets banged up. Technically, he's a gadget player. Now, I think Taysom Hill's a great football player. You guys know where I stand on Taysom. I've always been a big Taysom guy. But if that much goes wrong when he's not in, that's a pretty bad look. So, got to figure out a solution there. Matthew says, does anyone remember the last time the defense closed out in a clutch situation? Yeah, I mentioned it before, that P.J. Williams pick 6 against Tom Brady. October of 2021. That's the last time I feel like they closed out an important situation. Markel says, for someone who was a passing game coordinator, Kubiak is addicted to run plays. I mean, he is. It's because, Kubiak and that Shanahan offense that it all comes from, it's all about run. So Derek says the difference with Taysom in and out is night and day. It is. Brenton says Chase Young's going to get his salary just for showing up. Kind of feels that way, man. And I thought he got better. He was going to have a good year. He looked great in the preseason, looked good in training camp. And yeah, this is not what I expected to see from him, nor what I wanted to see. I wanted to see way better football from Chase Young, and we have not seen that. Drew says Carr is 3-14 lifetime against Kansas City. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Austin says, if we substitute half of the running back runs for end-around reverse plays like we saw in the first 2 weeks, where do those plays go? I don't know. It's a good question. It's a good question. I wish I had the answer for you, though. I don't know. I like those hypotheticals. Tough to say. Carl says Saints about to get curb stomped by the Chiefs. I don't think they're going to get destroyed by the Chiefs. They will probably lose. They may lose. I've said this week to week, and I'm going to keep saying it. I don't think the Chiefs are good enough anymore to just blow teams out on a week-to-week basis. They are good enough to win the Super Bowl. They are not good enough to blow every team out every single week. They're just not. They don't have that high-powered offense. No Pacheco, he's down. Rashee Rice got carted off the field today. So Worthy's a great player, but where is that offense coming from outside of Worthy and Kelsey right now if Rashee Rice is down? So yeah, I think the Chiefs will beat the Saints, but I don't think they're going to blow out the Saints. And this isn't me trying to defend the Saints. I have just ripped the Saints for 45 minutes straight. But I don't think they'll get blown out by the Chiefs. I don't. Hale Mendoza says Saints might struggle against the Panthers with the way they're playing since benching Bryce. Yeah, Andy Dalton looks pretty good. I didn't check that final score. I'm assuming the Bengals won. Yeah, all right. So Bengals won. But yeah, their offense looks so much better now that they have Andy Dalton in there, which is pretty hilarious that that's what it took to kind of have that shift. Edwin says, I'm tired of this team pathetic time and time again. This organization shows that it cannot develop a winning culture past Drew Brees. That will never change until leadership changes. Kind of tough to go against that. Great comment. I agree with you. TJB says Clint Carmichael showed up again today. Is that going to be his nickname when we don't like his play calling? Because I kind of dig it. Doesn't matter if the defense is good if they crumble in every big moment. I agree. David says the Saints bought into their own hype after the first 2 weeks and were sleepwalking the last two. I don't even know if sleepwalking is the right term, but they've shat their pants the last 2 weeks. I know that's for sure. You know? Bobby says Dennis Allen always sucks as a head coach. Some people have it and some people don't, and he is awful. I mean, yeah, said it before. I would say amen to that, man. Amen to that for sure. Why do we keep running press man with 30 seconds? I do not know. That's back-to-back weeks. Who does that fall on? The head coach. The fucking under 500 head coach. Lou says Nick Underhill reported Kamara played through broken ribs today, and Kamara said not playing was an option. Yeah, I mean, guy's a baller, guy's a leader, putting his body on the line. But, yeah, doesn't matter, man. Doesn't fucking matter. When you got the same old shit from Dennis Allen, man. So freaking annoying. Hale Mendoza says it's even more frustrating when you see the Eagles get blown out this week. Of course. Of course. Of course it's frustrating. Because that should have been a win, and it wasn't. And today should have been a win, and it wasn't. And next week, they'll be close with the Chiefs. And in the end of the game, they'll blow it. And we'll come back to this. We'll do a Monday night post-game live stream at like midnight, frustrated that for the third week in a row, this stupid fucking coach can't get the job done. And then Mickey Loomis is going to come up to the podium, chewing his gum very obnoxiously, and tell us that we're wrong. We got the next Chuck Noll. We got the next Bill Belichick. They don't. They don't. They got Doofus Dennis on the sideline. And if we want to keep Doofus Dennis for the majority of our lives, let's just do it. Rip the Band-Aid off, give him the extension. But I'm tired of it. I'm so tired. It's the same thing, man. And that's why I'm so frustrated about today. And if anyone goes, well, Chris, you changed your tune. Yeah, of course I changed my tune because I just watched the same movie for the last 3 fucking years. It's always coaching as to why they lose. Stupid. And everyone goes, oh, well, the players shouldn't be making those mistakes. All right. Shouldn't the coaches get those mistakes out of them too? I know it's a two-way street, but goddamn, man, it's frustrating. Scout says, where do you have them ranked, thinking like 14 to 16 in the league? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bad football in this league. I mean, a lot of bad football and a lot of bad coached teams. So I'm going to switch over to AFC for a sec, right? I think the Jets have a really good roster. The Jets looked pathetic against the Broncos today. At home, had 10 days to prepare, and it didn't matter, right? Because guess what? The Jets, kind of like the Saints, they don't have a head coach. They got a fucking rah-rah cheerleader as their head coach who is a great defensive coordinator. Saleh's a great defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen's a great defensive coordinator. They're not head coaches. So a lot of mid-football. But yeah, sure, the Saints are better than the Patriots, and they're better than the Raiders, and they're better than the Broncos, and they're better than right now, the Bengals, but even then. And they're better than the Jags, and they're better than the Titans. And sure, they're better than the Giants and the Rams. And even then, I wouldn't say that because they have a better coach quarterback. Better than Chicago, fine. But like, the Saints are like the 18th, 19th best team in the league. So that's like very mediocre. Hale Mendoza with a super chat. Thank you so much, man. It says, NFL offenses are so bad this year. At least college football is still exciting. That's a great point. Last night's game, Alabama-Georgia, was the best football game I've watched in a while. The best football game I've watched in a while. And to see Bama go up that early, which was an absolute avalanche, have Georgia storm back, which kudos to their coaching staff and their players, that down 30-7, they weren't like, hey, 12-team playoff, we could get our wins back later to fight back, take the lead. And then Alabama, you feel like, oh, everyone's getting tense. You could cut the tension with a butter knife in that stadium. And Jalen Milroe throws that 75-yard touchdown pass to Ryan Williams, which, by the way, 17 years old. He's that good. That's crazy. Yeah, pretty nuts. So Awesome game. That was exciting, but I agree with you. NFL's been bad this year. If tonight's game between the Ravens and Bills isn't like must-see TV, that's going to be pretty frustrating. So, we'll see. But I agree with you. It's not just the Saints. It's league-wide. There's problems, Donald says, damn, we ass. It says the fact we only score points consistently with Taysom in the lineup is troublesome. Dude is getting old and injuries are piling up. I agree. I don't think Carr is the problem. Kubiak just likes running even when it doesn't work, and short passes in the last two fourth quarters. When we start passing, we score touchdowns. Yeah, look, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think Derek Carr is the problem. He's not the problem. So I mostly agree with that take. Drew says Carr's 3-4 lifetime, 3-14 lifetime against the Chiefs. We are cooked. I mean, sure. Raiders weren't great then either, though. Mo says that 3rd and goal run was terrible. If you're going to run it there, at least try a motion wide receiver handoff with Shaheed. TJB says we make Kirk Cousins look like Montana. Who Dat Saints Nation says, where the hell is the pass rush? Non-existent. Just taking the year off. That's what it seems like. Chris's voice of complimentary football wins games echoed through my head through the entire second half. I mean, am I not wrong? Like last week, Saints defense was stepping up when the Saints offense wasn't playing well. And then when the Saints offense had that drive they needed to have, the defense collapsed, they lose the game. And the same thing happened again today. It's insane. And I don't even know who to blame anymore. Like in terms of which unit do you blame? Like everyone's got a piece of responsibility. And I'm telling you guys, I don't want to be an asshole, but it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again at some point in the next couple of games. They're going to have another loss that shouldn't have been a loss. And we're all going to look back and be like, oh, this is ridiculous. And to this comment from D23, which is absolutely accurate, the Dennis Allen team is so predictable. I totally agree, man. I totally agree they're so predictable. Hakeem says, Paulson Adebo kills us with these penalties in the secondary. Good corner, but unfortunately, he's too grabby, too handsy, whatever adjective you want to use. That's Paulson Adebo for you, man. That's Paulson Adebo for you. What else do we got here? D23 says, everyone, including the refs, knows how handsy Adebo gets. He's a walking penalty in that situation. Got to give Kool-Aid a shot. We've seen it a lot. Yeah, it's tough to argue against it. We've seen it too many times with Adebo. Way too many times. What else do we have? John says, Saints lost Atlanta last year too, giving up no defensive touchdowns. I'm sick of this team. I'm sick of these kind of losses. Yeah, it's frustrating. You're finding and inventing new ways to lose the game. Crazy. Forgive says, if Olave played on a good team, he'd be a top 3 receiver. People questioned if he was a diva last season, and now every game he's wide open, he's not getting the ball enough. Top 3, I don't know, but he'd be putting up better numbers than this, to your point, And we wouldn't be having a debate about, is Olave that good? Like, no, he is that good. But this team just doesn't use him the right way. YouTube user says Adebo gets a PI every game and never fails. Yeah, he's pretty darn consistent with that. Pretty darn consistent. Jay says, to be honest, I blame Adebo and Carr for that pick 6. Those two sold, and Rashid muffed a punt. Yeah, Rashid Shaheed, Rashid thinks he's fucking Willie Mays over here. Look at this catch. First off, it was inside the 5-yard line. Why are you trying to field that? So fucking stupid, I swear. Dumbest mistake I've seen from that team. And they've made a lot of stupid mistakes. D23 says, Derek Carr was okay. I just think after a bad play, he gets rattled far too easy. They had opportunities to put the pick 6 behind them and failed to score constantly. I think that's fair. Back-to-back years, by the way, he throws a pick 6 in Atlanta. So, not ideal. Forgive says, DA took Alante last year, took out Alante last year versus the Rams, so why wasn't Adebo pulled from the game? Make up your mind. Don't have favorites. Good point. All right, so I'm going to get to our closing argument. Guys, before we wrap it up, before I do that, though, I want to get a quick word from one of our sponsors, DraftKings Sportsbook.
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, whatever you call a touchdown. They matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? To do so, you have to score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code BOOT. That's code BOOT BOOT for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Once again, thank you to DraftKings for being part of the program. By the way, it's great that there is a number you can call if you have a gambling problem. If you have a Dennis Allen problem, there's no one you can call because you're fucked. You're going to deal with this guy the entire season. So that's where we're at. So anyway, guys, you've all been fantastic. I want to get to our closing arguments here on the Straight Up Saints podcast. Our closing arguments are presented by Scott Vicnair, Injury Lawyers. I said it before and I'll keep saying it again. I think the New Orleans Saints have good moments. They have flashes of a team that can be fun this year, that can maybe vie for a playoff spot. And yet again, for the second week in a row, when they had to have that gotta have it situation, gotta have it stop, gotta have it, stand to win the game, they come up short. And it's become a recurring theme. And the reality is there's only one guy who's going to be able to change that narrative. Either Dennis Allen's going to figure this out along the way, or it's going to keep happening and the Saints have to put on their big boy pants and say, you know what? We can't do with DA anymore. So which one's it going to be? Are the Saints going to figure it out starting next Monday against Kansas City? Or is this going to snowball so poorly where we're going to be in a spot where all of us are once again, for the third year in a row, going to have to sit here in November and December and beg this team to make a change to their leadership? We'll see what happens. So that's where we're at. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for being part of this, leaving your comments, your thoughts, your likes, subscribing to the channel. If you guys did any of that along the day, I really appreciate it. We'll be back for more Saints coverage over the next couple of days. We'll have more videos. We'll have our preview for Saints Chiefs and a lot more. So stay tuned for that. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll have more soon from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.